We got a short amount of time, so I'm going to hop right into it. I got an opening question for everybody here. And Terry, I'll start with you. We'll go down the line. When you hear the phrase, the future of storytelling, what excites you and what worries you? Give me a 60-second response.
Okay, 60 seconds. I've been involved in storytelling from the time I was 14. I made the Sam Cooke story, the very first person to make a documentary on the life of Sam Cooke, and that brought me to America, buying and selling comic books, chasing a dream of wanting to be a spaceman before there was a name called astronauts. And the stories that I told have reached over 4.5 billion people worldwide, from hip-hop and Motown to Marvel and Warner Brothers DC. So I've done everything that I've ever dreamed of and more. And stories don't die. Technology just moves on, and we adapt our stories to the technologies that exist.
Great 60-second response. Well done. All right, pressure's on. Cindy, 60 seconds. What excites you? What worries you? The future of storytelling.
I think what excites me the most is that there is no one way to tell a story. So as I think about the future, I think about the continuing possibilities of what storytelling will look like. So you can tell a story through music, you can tell it through art, you can tell it with your words. I'm just really excited to see what other art forms develop and how we're going to tell our stories in the future. I think what worries me is maybe as we continue to move toward a society that is more appreciative of authentic storytelling, we're also still to the point of Terry, technology doesn't stop. And so as we continue to build, and there are so many, benefits of AI and other things, it also can distort some reality and story. That worries me because I want to see how we're going to keep tabs on that.
Yeah, that's going to be a big part of our discussion today as well. Darrien, what excites you? What worries you? The future of storytelling.
Well, what excites me is that, historically speaking, filmmakers and storytellers have always kind of put into perspective any time that we have gone through. And so we learned a lot about nuclear power from China Syndrome. We learned a lot about creating unions from Norma Ray. And now is the time where people are going to tell the future about this time. And so the stories that we make now will reflect who we were at this point for those in the future. And that it's exciting to me that these are the people who tell the truth. What worries me is that we are giving over so much of our brain power to technology. Technology is a tool, but the moment we let it do our thinking for us, our brains atrophy. It's why we can't remember phone numbers anymore. So if we let something else make our stories, we learn the ability to tell stories. And that's what worries me.
Yeah, that worries me too. Absolutely. Jackie, you can wrap this up here on this one.
Okay. What excites me about storytelling is that it encompasses every art form. Our stories are everywhere. They're in our music, they're in our theater, they're in our dance, they're in our museum, they're in books that we read. Our stories are everywhere. And as long as we continue to live them, breathe them, and feed them, they will continue to exist in whatever art form, in whatever technological form that they take place. What concerns me is that it's so important that we tell our own stories, that we not allow others to control or create our history. Because we have a history of being lied about for centuries. And we cannot let that go on.
For this first part of the discussion, I want to talk about access and ownership and our part of that. And Jackie, I do want to start with you when it comes to that. You've spent years, really decades, building Black ensemble theater as an institution centered on Black stories. That deserves a round of applause. Absolutely. So Jackie, what have you learned about the difference between being invited into someone else's institution and actually owning the institution where the stories are being told?
by being, what did you say?
The difference between being invited versus owning the institution itself.
Well, I think that's really obvious for us, right? I mean, you know, when it's yours, it's yours. And you have total control about what you can say and what you can do. When you're invited, you don't even know if you're going to be able to even come to dinner at the table. So I think that's basically the difference.
Cindy, for you, Creative Cipher, incredible organization. I hand a round of applause for them. Cindy Beasly here. Creative Cipher works to create community and opportunity for filmmakers and creators. Are the barriers to access becoming lower today, or have the old gatekeepers simply been replaced by new gatekeepers altogether?
I think that's an excellent question, and the first thing that comes to mind is no, the barriers are not lower. And when I think of a gatekeeper, typically we think of a person, but those barriers, those gatekeepers, they come in different forms. And one of the first things that just came to mind for me right now is a current trend we're seeing in our society and in politics right now, the cutting of DEI funding. I feel like I can stop there, you know what I mean? Like, if you sit with that point, that alone shows that the barriers are not lessening. And as the times change, what those barriers are will continue to change. So I think, to Jackie's point, you gotta find your own, you gotta build your own. And that was one of the points of creating Creative Cipher for Troy. Make your own table, stop asking for a seat at other people's.
Absolutely. And Terry, kind of along those lines, we talk about these barriers to access. Technology theoretically allows everybody to have a seat at the table and get in the game nowadays. Does that mean that traditional media gatekeepers are becoming less powerful? And if so, who would you deem the new media gatekeepers?
Okay, could I be really honest with everybody?
Please, be honest.
All right. So, you're not going to change the gatekeepers. There's too much money at stake and they control too much of the distribution mechanism, right? But what you are going to do is learn the value of your stories and the value of global black culture, right? Black culture has a price. Now, can I give you some just interesting statistics? Because whatever technology we talk about, at the end of the day, for them it's only money that counts, right? So let me tell you this. And I know this because I'm in it, so I'm speaking with some authority, and you can fact check everything I say in the Global Economic Forum. The creative industries are worth $3.16 trillion worldwide right now. 310.4 billion of that is music and film. 3.1% of that money employs the world's community. And 6% of that is the total workforce of the world. Now, $3.16 trillion, the total amount the creative industries create. Now let's look at it from a black perspective. Africa alone is 58 billion of that. But how many of you export to Africa? 2.25 trillion. Remember, we're talking about 3.16 trillion, and now we're talking about 2.15 trillion is what's generated by black popular culture and ideas. That's more than half the world's that's a third of the world's creative economy. But we are less than 1% of Silicon Valley or any type of media ownership. So I learned to dance with the gatekeepers because I realized the only thing they understood about me was the fact that I produced money for them, but I own the property that I create. So I benefit economically from that. Right? And I'm in theatre, I'm in radio, I'm in television, I'm in film, and I'm in publishing, and I'm in video games, and I'm in toy manufacturing, and I'm in so many other things, because there's not one way to tell a story. And any of you thinking about being storytellers as writers, producers, creatives today, you're not going to be doing it in one genre anymore. The formats have changed, and also what's happening in the future is human beings, as it goes more to artificial intelligence, are looking for more and more ways to engage with other human beings. So even events will start to change. They'll become more immersive. You'll be able to walk away from them and still engage with them in some kind of short form or short vertical form or documentary or film or television. So it's not necessarily about the technology, it's how we use the technology and how we understand the economics of what we're doing. That's how you disrupt the gatekeepers, because if you can't finance your own, you're always going to them to give you money, and that's what happens. You only get the money when you're following their narrative. If you want your own narrative, you pay for it yourself.
Darrien, I'm going to get you on this part too. You work with a lot of independent filmmakers who have to navigate kind of what Terry's talking about, dancing with the gatekeepers in a sense, right? And getting the realities of getting what they love made. What's the biggest misconception that you think young filmmakers have about what it takes to really turn that idea into a sustainable career in making media?
Two things come to mind. One is that people don't need to study. They don't need their idea is so good it's off the cuff, they don't need to worry about the rules or the standards of actual storytelling. But the way of storytelling is as old as we are, as a humanity. And so rarely can you totally break the rules of storytelling and keep your audience. You can push it, you can bend it, but there are so many people who are like, well, I don't do that. Well, I just do it my way. And I'm like, that's cool if you and your mama are going to read this. But the rest of us, there are certain things that need to be in place for us to follow. I mean, within the confines is creativity. When you have walls, you learn how to decorate. But if you just have it everywhere, it's hard to follow. So never stop studying. Never stop reading good material. Never stop looking at things. Never stop taking classes if you can, because it all informs your art. So I have a lot of people who are like, well, my film is 18 hours or whatever. And I'm like, oh, no. So many times I'm like, that's not a film. That's your life. So that's one thing. But also, it's understanding the other side. Last week I went to a conference that was all kind of tech people, and I just wanted to hear what they were talking about and how they were kind of viewing it, because my world is independent filmmakers. We're scrappy, we're always broke, not having money as a filmmaker is just Tuesday. And so we know what it's like to have to grind. But I wanted to hear what the other side was saying about what they were bringing. And a lot of it was what I expected, but one thing that gave me a glimmer of hope, and that was the head of one of the big companies said, if you're looking for technology to help you make product with less people and faster output, then you're doing it wrong. And they talked a lot about keeping the humanity in projects, whether it proves to be true, we'll see. But at the same time, I felt a glimmer of hope that people were trying to make sure that the humanness of our stories can only come from humans. We're the only ones who understand emotions and understand the way in which we process and think and love. And that can't be relegated to something else. So understanding that you can use things, but you cannot take yourself out of it. You can't take your heart out of it. You can't give it to something else or someone else to tell your story.
And Darrien, this is a great segue into our next part of the discussion. It's almost like you got my notes or something.
I knew it.
Ooh. We're going to talk about that dreaded thing, artificial intelligence. Ooh. I heard some movies. You can't talk about future storytelling without talking about the rise of AI. But other than asking whether we are pro-AI or anti-AI, whether it's good or bad, I'm more interested in talking about where do we draw the line as creators and storytellers in its usage. Because I think we should be honest. AI itself as a concept has existed for a long time. If you use Microsoft Word spell check, that is a form of AI.
Right.
That's the truth. If you use Otter, which is a transcription service, that is AI. If you use Trent, which is another transcription service to actually block out your stories and scripts, had it for about 7 years now, that is also AI. So we have to be realistic about where we are now, but there are some ethical lines to discuss. Cindy, I want to start with you on this. For an independent filmmaker without a studio budget, obviously some of these tools can dramatically change the process and lower the cost of creating something. Do you believe that AI can help democratize filmmaking, or will it ultimately create another divide when it comes to storytelling and ethics? How do you view AI when it comes to that?
I think the point that was made earlier on the stage around how AI should be a resource, a tool, not the end-all be-all, is kind of what answers that question. Because to Darrien's point, if you take your heart or something, if you let AI do the job, I don't care how much you talk to it, it still does not truly know you. Maybe it can guess what makes you tick and make you feel and have some accuracy to it, but it doesn't know that feeling in the pit of your stomach when you're scared or when you're in love or when you're happy, and there's no way it could ever genuinely recreate that. And I say that to say, what can it do for a filmmaker? Can it democratize it? Maybe it's freeing in a way, it gives you some authority for sure, and I think it has its benefits, but it could never truly replace or, lead in that way if you want to keep storytelling that is not only authentic, but that is moving, that is of quality, and that will sustain the test of time.
And Jackie, you're coming from a medium that's really built around something that technology can't really replicate. That's people coming together, right? That's human beings sharing physical space in a theater. So does live theater to you become even more valuable in a world where audiences are increasingly questioning what's real, what's fake, and AI coming into the picture?
Well, AI. Oh, Lord have mercy. You were so right when you said it's been around a long, long time. I think the danger is that we don't realize it's been around a long, long time. There are things that have been created and are being created that when you say it can't create this or that, I think we better think about that. Because right now what separates us from the technology of it all is our interactions as human beings. But they're creating, and they have been creating from the early 50s when they had the embryos that they made human beings from, form of AI. So first, I think we have to be very cautious in understanding what is happening in that area and what has been happening. Because it may be new to some, but to those who control that aspect of our lives, it is not new, it's old. But it has taken a control that I hope we will be very aware of in terms of how we use it. I don't let my grandson use AI. I don't let him get on his tablet except for 20 minutes a day, because that's enough. Because the mind is capable of things that we don't even know or understand yet, that we're not using as human beings. So I want him to first be able to understand how to utilize the mind, because systematically we're being trained not to.
Amen.
We're being trained to be the robots. An example of that is when they took in cursive out of the school. How crazy was that? Some people think, oh, it's okay, they can print. And I told my grandson, you're going to have to write your name, boy, somewhere in your life. So here's a penmanship book and get to work. There's ways that we can use our minds that we're not even aware of. So AI is here, it's been here, it ain't going nowhere, it's gonna stay here, and it's gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger. But as human beings, we have to connect with our humanity, our emotions, our feelings, our minds, our connection with each other, understanding each other in ways that will allow us to be able to identify who is real, what is real, and what is not.
Darrien, kind of picking up on that point, obviously with AI, it raises a lot of questions for actors, for filmmakers. Where do you see AI, especially when you're working with young filmmakers, being a legitimate tool for filmmaking? And then do you see any part of it that could actually be a threat to what we're talking about, the humanity, the art, and all that type of stuff when it comes to expression?
I mean, there are definitely ways to use it as a tool, but there are definitely some threats to our industry. In particular, if you're a performer and an actor, it can be used insidiously. So, you know, I'm a creative, I'm a filmmaker, so I'm deeply suspicious of everything. And so what I look at is not what can it do first, but what else can it do? Because the first thing they show you will be great. And then you start looking at the other things, and it's not great. Right now, actors are being given contracts where they are being recorded and scanned, their entire bodies are being captured, and now they're in a position where their bodies and their voices can do things they never agreed to do. And people won't know that that's not them, that somebody made them do that. And so now we have people, and you know, I don't work for SAG-AFTRA, but I know that they're fighting to keep their people safe because you have no control over what now people see your body doing, and they have no way of knowing it's not in accordance with you. So understand that generative AI, I think, is incredibly dangerous. I've seen people do some things where they created a great little short using a famous actor who was not in it, but they recreated him. And they said, well, it's because I love this person so much. And like, that's lovely. But you could just as easily have put him someplace that was terrible. And so that part has to be controlled. Otherwise, you have no way of protecting yourself when somebody says, oh, they were at this party or that event, and you have no way of getting in front of it to say, no, that's not me. So I think when it's generative, you have to be very careful and understand that people's livelihoods are at stake. But even in the way of the tools, they're great. And if you are doing, you know, you're an independent filmmaker, you're oftentimes a one-man band. And you have to figure everything out. And it's amazing to be able to use tools to help you get there. But also remember that every time, as you get more down the road with your filmmaking career, that when you make storyboards on a computer, it can be great. You've now taken out all the storyboard artists. So now, even though you can tell it what you want, you'll never get something that says, hey, how about this way? The art of a person will give you options, will give you ideas and give you thoughts. AI can only work with what it's given. And it cannot create something out. So if we have AI, we'll never get another Christopher Nolan Memento. It can't do that. It can give us a lot of amalgamation of what's already there. But it cannot truly innovate. It's a bit of like creating a lot of Frankenstein monsters.
Right.
It can only take pieces of things that already exist, but it can't create life.
Yeah.
So you can use it, and I don't begrudge it, but it's careful, and then think about the people who are affected by what you're doing, and is that really what you want to do? Particularly with actors and singers and people whose entire, body of work is based on who they are. It's a scary place right now.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope for sure. We're going to have time for brief Q&A, about 5 minutes. We got one more question. Never mind, no Q&A. I apologize. We have one more question I'll ask. Terry, I do want to draw on your global business experience and especially in the media world when it comes to this AI question. How do you think AI may change business? The business of storytelling, the production side, distribution side. Is it going to help us reach more audiences around the world? Where do you kind of see it?
Okay, well, I want to say this, because you asked some big existential questions, right? These are big questions, and I'm here and I really just want to give you something practical that you can all take away and actually do something individually for yourselves, because I'm sure you're all looking to do your own businesses and things like that. So, first of all, let me tell you, you can't stop AI. It's already here. Think about it when Andy Warhol said everybody in the world would have their 5 minutes of fame. Now, anybody can be an influencer and pick up. They don't have to go through media training, journalistic training, really learn how to use camera technology, lighting, audio. The phone balances it all up. The camera does it. So, the artificial intelligence is already in devices you're already using. What doesn't change in the storytelling part is when you're telling a story, you have to start from the emotional, the why. What's going to bring people in? What's going to be the thing, the points you raise that the AI can't do? Because remember, large language models, which is what AI does, it sweeps up all the knowledge in the world that it can gather, and you give it a prompt, and it gives you back an answer. But it's not really you. Only you know you. Only you know the story you're trying to tell to reach people that you think may have an affinity with how you feel or the change you want. And then the middle part of the story is the challenge. Just like in life. Life is a 3-story act. You're born, you then pass education and you work, and then you retire and you die. But it's how you die. To be honest with you, what's the legacy you leave? And all of you are in the legacy business. So the stories that you're going to tell, if you want them to resonate and have power and agency, despite what any technology that comes along, that's the first thing you've got to consider. I'm not casting doom, by the way, when I talk about we can't stop it, because it's like the nuclear bomb. Once it exploded, everybody who wants some dominance in the world is trying to get hold of one. And it's the same as AI. And I'm not even talking, we haven't even reached quantum computing yet. And I'm involved in companies right now that are looking into is AI conscious. We don't even know what quantum computing will do, but they're still experimenting with it. And these things take vast resources, vast amounts of money, and we do not even come close to fighting that.
Yeah.
So what we do have agency of is our storytelling and using those distribution mechanisms to get our stories out there, make the money to give us our independence, and then, like this lady at the end said, and this lady said about, them digitizing your form, your IP, your intellectual property. You've got to take control of that and own it. But you're not going to go to a bank and get that. You're going to have to generate the income for yourselves to own it and trademark it and represent yourself.
Absolutely. I'm getting all the rap singles in the world. So we, unfortunately, do not have any more time. I appreciate this conversation. Please give a round of applause for Jervis, to Darrien Gipson, to Jack Taylor, and for Cindy Beasly. And now, the president of the Creative Site for herself, Cindy Beasly, has a very, very special announcement to make. I'm excited to hear it.
I'm excited to share, and I have a couple of special announcements actually. So the first, if we can get it queued up on AV, it's funny that we're sitting here talking about the future of storytelling. We are officially launching our XL Lab and Film Festival Kickstarter campaign for next year. So this means this is your real-time opportunity to scan this QR code